Hi all, it's Tammy. Happy Memorial Day. A couple of things I wanted to talk about today is regarding the fact that it's actually getting warm here in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's really important, it's actually an important thing to discuss because there's more and more people that I'm hearing about that are actually struggling with, believe it or not, the ability to keep their bodies cool, otherwise sweat. Some people sweat too much, other people don't sweat enough. And those who don't sweat enough, the condition's actually called anhydrosis or hypohidrosis is another way of saying it. And in either case, though, you're actually dealing with hormonal imbalances. And so, that's my big thing, right? It's like I really want people to help restore their neurochemistry because every chemical messenger, whether, dopamine, serotonin, estrogen, these are all important chemicals that actually have more function than just brain health and mental health. And that's the reason why I say, really working with the neurochemistry and helping the brain to be as healthy as possible will actually help the entire body to be healthy. Now, that said, it's virtually impossible to get real specific in any of these videos with regards to how to address these systemically. However, I can make some suggestions right off the bat, which is to get yourself some electrolytes. You can get those in powder form. There are plenty of bottled waters these days that contain electrolytes in them. You can even make your own through the use of citrus fruit, which includes the rind. Okay, so that said, you want to, you can get lime, orange, grapefruit, and actually make a tea out of them, which, like I said, includes the rind. You cut them up, you throw them all in the water, you throw some boiling water over it and allow it to steep, and now you've just created your own electrolyte water. So your fruits, this is the reason why we have fruits this time of year during the summer months, because the fruits contain those electrolytes and they actually help to keep our systems as regulated as possible. Electrolytes are necessary for heart function as well as fluid regulation. And that said, the neurotransmitters, like I mentioned earlier, dopamine and serotonin, are also very important, as is histamine, in our heart function as well as fluid regulation. So that's the reason why it's really difficult to pinpoint what might be causing one individual's electrolyte imbalances unless I know something a little bit more specific. Now, signs of anhydrosis or hypohidrosis would be, first of all, being flushed and kind of sticky skin. Now, see, that's going to be kind of tricky because, days like today where the sun's shining, if you're out in the sun long enough, you're going to possibly turn red because you've been, exposed to the sun and gotten a little bit of sunburn. So it's hard to be able to determine if someone is actually overheating or is actually getting sunburned. So that's why, number two, you want to check the condition of the skin. If it's sticky, days like today, it's going to get sticky. It's 85% humidity. And when that moisture in the air hits the skin, it's going to condense. That's not perspiration. That's just condensation. You're kind of like a Coke can at that point, and where the sweat is beginning to build up. As we know, Coke cans don't sweat on their own, and you're not a Coke can. Now, a couple of things about this. So, like I said, it's crucial to pay attention to what your body is doing in this heat and humidity. So those are the initial signs. From there, you get into feeling dizzy. You might have heart palpitations, kind of getting out of breath, starting to feel a little disoriented. Obviously, those are major signs. And if you don't pay attention to those signs, then you're looking at heart attack or heat stroke. So really recognizing the early on symptoms and that this is what your body's doing. Other signs would be swelling in the fingers and in the feet, edema, because the body isn't flushing the fluids properly. And so it's and again, it's going to be due to neurotransmitter imbalances. So what causes those would be, number one, medications, depending on the condition that you're being treated for. Now, with over 50% of the American population being on some sort of antipsychotic medication, or I should say psychoactive medication, that's the better word to use. Antipsychotics aren't 100%. Some people are on antidepressants, some people are on anxiolytics, other ones are on antipsychotics. There are also blood pressure medications. There are blood thinners. All of these can lead to electrolyte imbalances. Parkinson's is another one. So it really depends on the diagnosis that an individual is living with. That would actually help myself to help that individual. But like I said, the very beginning step would be get yourself on some electrolytes, and really helping the body to keep itself hydrated. It's not about drinking more water. We can actually drink too much. Too much water will flush nutrients from the system, and that's the last thing you want to be doing. So really getting yourself on an electrolyte supplement and these are important all year round. But it's even more so when the air around us is actually pulling these out of us. And so I want to say on that note, with hypohidrosis, it doesn't mean that you don't sweat altogether. And this is where it starts to get kind of confusing for people, because they may actually perspire a little bit. You might be around sunglasses, like on the bridge of your nose. It could be around, if your clothing is, close to the skin, you'll actually perspire around elastic. So it doesn't mean that you don't make it 100%. It means that it may be minimal at best, and it's not keeping yourself cool. Other people, obviously, I've been around people that, they just drip, 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 and then there are those who don't at all. So really recognizing what your body is doing, and again, helping to reset the neuroendocrine system, because this is a hormonal issue as well. And so there's a lot tied into it. And again, electrolytes are the key. Cooling the individual off, if that's the case, and is necessary. Getting him in the shade, removing as much of the clothing as possible, getting an ice pack or a cold wet rag on the back of the neck, even cooling the face is going to be necessary. And then from there, hydrating them with nothing, not like a Coke, and nothing that's a diuretic, but actually giving them the water with electrolytes in it, so that the body can actually at that point begin to flush the water instead of holding on to it. Most people who suffer from hypohidrosis tend to be a little bit more, have a little bit more swelling on the body, and they may retain water, is the way I want to say it. They'll retain water. And so that would be your very first step. If you retain water rather easily, you have an electrolyte imbalance. So, and again, like I said, this is hormonal. A lot of women who, during their monthly cycle, will experience swelling in the ankles and the feet and the lower legs. This again is an electrolyte imbalance, and the sooner you can capture that and get yourself started on at the very least, an electrolyte protocol, and making sure to include, fruits, because your electrolytes are. This is the reason why we were given. This is, like I say, plants are my muse. This is the reason why I sit and I like to do videos where I am, because this is just extraordinary. Because what's available to us through plants is beyond discussion, and so again, we were given fruits during the summertime to actually help us keep our bodies replenished and keep the fluids moving. Now, that said, there's a lot of genetic components, genetic adaptations that would be potential triggers for this. Could be a nitric oxide, the body's ability not to produce nitric oxide synthase. It could be a COMT issue. COMT is another genetic complex that is necessary for neuroendocrine production. So again, it's going to depend on the individual to really identify what else to do, because these things do work for a while, but they don't necessarily rectify the problem altogether. Now, I realize that we're all getting older, and our time here is very precious and limited at best. And so health conditions are imminent, or are they? That's the question I ask. Are they really imminent? I like working with younger folks. Oh, I like working with people of all ages. That really sounded bad. I'm sorry. I like working with people of all ages who have, certain health, any kind of health concern. With our children, we can actually rewrite their future of their health. I was talking to one of my moms yesterday about this very thing, and the reason I say that is with hypohidrosis. It's, a lot of times we see it with a lot of dopamine issues. Dopamine is a very important neurotransmitter. Some people are on antidepressants such as Wellbutrin, which is a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. Dopamine, as we know, is also important, and an important neurotransmitter when it comes to Parkinson's. And typically we see people who have Parkinson's who also have hypohidrosis. So there's a good correlation as to how dopamine is a really important neurotransmitter when it comes to helping our body regulate the fluids. The sooner we catch these signs and symptoms, the sooner we can actually help begin to rewrite the genetic adaptations that are modify these genetic adaptations to potentially offset the future. And in the meantime, also help those and our families and family members and friends who are living with such conditions. So, like I said, I rely on the plants for many things, nutritionally as well as through the use of oils and herbs. When I work with folks, these are recommendations I make through consults as well as provide to people here in the United States. But the plants are imperative to our survival. And in fact, I'm going to begin a blog here, actually later today. It should be up by tomorrow, called The Plant Whisperer. I would love for you to join me. It's going to be on WordPress. And just beginning to just write about my daily musings and experiences of what happens with different plants and how they inspire me. I'm also beginning a membership group which I will, different membership groups rather, that would actually target very specific health conditions that people could actually begin to get more specific information, very detailed information about what they're living with. I'm excited to be introducing these, and it's going to be with autism, it's going to be with high blood pressure. Parenting is another one. Parenting as a prevention and helping our children lead healthier lives. The number of groups that I'm starting, I'm not entirely sure just yet, but I wanted to inform people to be looking for this, because I really want to be able to help people on a grand scale. And but it's difficult when I make such generalized videos. So being able to be more specific and help people more individually is really where I want to come from, and make it reasonable to everyone who's interested in collaborating and integrating the world of medicine with natural remedies, and actually reaping the fullest rewards as we do in our gardens. So until then, have a beautiful holiday if you're here in the United States. To the rest of you around the world, it's always a pleasure spending time with you, and I look forward to staying in touch. Talk with you soon. Bye now.